Greetings, my brothers and my sisters, and I know you are excited as we are as we continue with our March Gladness celebration. And tonight we're listening to again Pastor Tillis Chapman from the Galilee Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan. Fasten your seatbelt and let's celebrate together. God bless you, and may God keep you is our prayer.
Come with me to the 32nd chapter of the book of Genesis, beginning with the 24th verse and a few of the following. Here is how it reads in the New Revised Standard Version. Jacob was left alone, and the man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on the hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with humans, and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. I want to tell you today, live with your limp. Life needs balance, and only God can amalgamate alternating incidents in one's life so as to bring about such balance. Only God can suffuse a perfect blend of good and bad, up and down, positive and negative, gratification and pain, that one may have parity in their personal existence, a parity without which one runs the risk of ruining their life with a one-sided existence. As the earth's vegetation and foliage and forests of the earth need adequate sun, soil, and soaking, life needs corresponding incident and context. As without the sun, the earth's vegetation will never reach an optimum level of vivacity or botanical splendor. And without balance in life, one's life becomes one-sided. Otherwise, God orchestrates the human narrative or the narrative of humans so as to produce an unpretentious and humble people. I admit, and you are very much aware, that there are some people whom history has revealed as individuals who defied, and defy the stage management of the Almighty God. Therefore, the earth the world, society, is plagued with tainted tyrants and tycoons, people who are vexed with vanity, people who are individual imperialists. They come in the form of Queen Mary I, Genghis Khan, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, Donald John Trump, just to mention a few. Such a people upon this planet whose lives God desires to touch. But even out of their defiance, that one would become a person with a balanced life, God has to humiliate them in order to help them. He has and knows that he has to humiliate them, similar to the way he humiliated Jacob, one who was celebrated the father of the nation of Israel. He comes onto the pages of history as a heel catcher, one whose life was riddled with trickery. But one night, he had an intimate encounter with God, as the writer Moses, who wrote the book of Genesis, so as to reveal to the nation of Israel and to all mankind as of how God orchestrated the genesis of the earth and humanity and his people. That Jacob, on that night, wrestled with a divine being, and in the event thereof, this divine being, as some would describe it, as a man, others an angel, others would contend it was God. It was the representative of God, or he was the representative of God, who, because of Jacob's tenacity, touched Jacob and changed his life, gave him a new label, but also left him with a limp to recall the incident for the remainder of his life. Could it be that that's the reason why the Lord has allowed us to go through life with contention, not on flowery beds of ease, but through incidents and occurrences with which he has had to help us, and by having helped us, leaves us to recall how he helped us. We need a memory check, as did Jacob, who was not struck on his hip by this divine being so as to make him sore or as to have him to suffer. It was done so as to summon up his memory, so that he would never forget how the Lord allowed his life to be altered. We need these types of reminders. We need to be reminded that this world at present is experiencing the proliferation of a pandemic. We are victimized by voter suppression, saturated with systemic segregation and discrimination. We are now engulfed with unchanged gun laws, and God would love to change us. God would love to help us, and he knows, however, the best way to help us is to leave us with a limp. Whatever your case may be, my brothers and sisters, however you sum it up, however you describe it, the Bible in this context infers that we all at some point have had or has had to limp. I know that you have a preference you have a desire, you solicit a spot-on kind of life, a life that would present you as one having a peaceful and pleasant and palatable course to travel in life. But I'm afraid to tell you, you are a part of a paragon of limpers. I know you've got a few letters behind your name. You've caressed your cranium within the corridor of some college somewhere, and you've come away with quite a few letters behind your name, but you're still limping. Married and still limping. You are making quite a bit of money. You got a good paying job, but you're limping. You have a lot of people around you in your concentric circle of contact, but you're still limping. You even love the Lord with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. But every day you have to face a person in the mirror, and that person is a limping person. But don't feel bad about your limp, beloved, because the world is helped most by a limping person. This man, Jacob, wrestled with this divine being overnight, and morning was coming, and his life was therefore altered, augmented, edited, changed, and he was left with a new life, but he had to walk with a limp. Today, your name becomes Jacob. Your experience is like that of Jacob, but rather than pout and pine and whine about your limp, allow your limp to summon up your memory and to help you recall some things, particularly how God helped you while you are limping. Remember that the limp is to remind you that he could have killed you, but instead he kept you. Therein lies the mercies and graces of God. Therein is the struggle between God's mercy and God's compassion, God's justice and God's mercy. God's justice says we ought to die, but God's compassion says, in essence, we are delivered. God's justice warrants our being sentenced to eternal damnation, but mercy accounts for our experiencing sympathy and the Lord's salvation. Jacob was not one who was killed in this instance. The Lord revealed that he could have killed him just by touching him. And however, as he touched him, he indicated his desire to keep him. Not because Jacob was one who was smart and savvy and clever with acute acumen and know-how. He was kept because he was a part of God's covenant. That tells you and me, beloved, that this is our theological rationale as to why we are still alive, and the reason why we still exist. It is because God has decided to keep us. Check his record. He has a power-packed portfolio of those persons who came into his presence limping. Whatever you give him, he always alters that matter and that person to a whole new level. Give him a prostitute in Jericho. He will convert her life and turn her into a one-woman rescue mission for the children of God. Give him a tied-tongued shepherd who was on the run from Egypt as a fugitive. God would meet him on the backside of Sinai via a burning bush that burned but wouldn't burn up, gave it vocal propensity, and took on a fugitive and made him a freedom fighter. Give him a prosecutor of the church on the Damascus Road. By the time he's done with him, he will convert him into a preacher. Give him a trickster like Jacob, and I tell you what he will do. He will touch him and lift his life, give him a brand new label, and leave him with a limp, which is a signal for you and for me that whatever life hands you, you can still live with the limp that you have. I bless God today in the words of the lyricist who put it this way: I've had some good days, I've had some hills to climb, I've had some weary days and some lonely nights, but whenever I look around and think things over, my good days outweigh my bad days, and I won't complain, and I won't complain because the Lord could have killed me, but instead he decided to keep me. This limping of Jacob and the limp that you have in life, beloved, is because the Lord wants you to recall the fact that he could have blocked you, but instead of blocking you, he decided to bless you. Some years ago, the MasterCard credit company, through a series of advertisements, launched its credit card theme under this phrase: for everything else, there is MasterCard. Each advertisement featured an item or a commodity or a venue that people would enjoy understanding and realizing the cost of an item or that commodity or that venue. But beyond the cost of the item or the commodity or the venue was the value of the experience, which this ominous voice that was in this commercial or advertisement said that moment was priceless. And for everything else, there was MasterCard. Jacob had everything that any man could dream of, but there were some things he did not have. He had a whole lot of possessions, but he didn't have peace of mind. He had a whole big household, but his heart was still troubled. He had everything that a man could dream of, but he still needed his spirit delivered. And beloved, he can only get it from God. That's why he held on. And I encourage you today, through this experience of Jacob, there are some things you will only get. There are some things you will only experience by holding on. It's hard, it's rough, it's tough, it's dark, it's dismal, it's dangerous, it's depressing, it's tear-jerking, it's nerve-wracking. But if you hold on like Jacob, you'll realize that in some cases the Lord could have blocked you, but he decided to bless you. This is not the narrative of all too many people who are wealthy and in seats of power, some of whom are where they are because of hard work and a whole lot of sacrifice, but some are where they are because they block other people. They sit on Supreme Courts, but they block others. They sit in seats of Congress and lawmaking positions, but they block others. They occupy human resource departments for major companies, but they block others. They get their blessing and their breakthroughs, but they block others. But thank God we serve a God who knew that he could have blocked us, but instead of blocking us, he decided to bless us. Hear the words of the lyricist who put pen to parchment and said these words: I am blessed, beloved, thank the Lord, I am blessed. We are blessed because the Lord decided to bless us. I bid you good day when I leave you with these words. You got to live with your limp. And you got to live with your limp because your limp reminds you that instead of God indicting you, he gave you a new identity. Each of us has a past. Each of us has an history. And our history is not so pleasant. Our history is not so preferable. We have some skeletons in our closet. But thanks be to God, that God changed our identity. When Jacob meets this divine being, he wrestles with this divine being through the night. And as morning was breaking, the man said, the angel said, the divine being said, let me go, for day is breaking. And Jacob responded, I will not let you go until you bless me. And he asked Jacob for his name. This was a question he was asked before. As he deceived his blind father with the help of his deceptive mother to procure the birthright of his weakening brother. He was asked what was his name. He was asked in that instance, and he gave the wrong name. But in this instance, he had to come clean. He said Jacob, which means supplanter, heel catcher, as one whose life revealed that he was holding on to other people's property all along. But the divine being responded by saying, your name will no longer be Jacob. From now on, you will have a new identity. Your name will be Israel, for you have striven with God and with humanity, and you have prevailed. Thank God, beloved, that the Lord gives us new identities. Whatever you've done in life, people remember you by what you did in that instance. If you stole, you were labeled as a thief. If you robbed, you were labeled as a robber. If you were a person of promiscuous personality, then you were labeled as such. But one happy day, you had a wrestling match with the divine, and he gave you a whole new identity. Hear the words of Jesse Dixon, who says, I am redeemed. I'm bought with the price, and Jesus has changed my whole life. And if anybody asks you just who I am, tell them I am a child of God. Yes, I'm a child of God, even though I'm limping. Yes, you are a child of God, even though you're limping. But hold on, beloved. Celebrate even while you are limping. We know how to live with limps. We limped all the way out of slavery. We limped all the way through Jim Crow. We limped all the way across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We limped our way into the office of mayor in major cities in this nation. We limped into governors' houses, and we even limped all the way to the White House. And one day the Lord knew that we would have to limp through life, but what did he do? He opened his arms and received us and helping us right now to live with our limps. Can I repeat something I told you a little while ago? I've had some good days. I've had some hill to climb. I've had some weary days and some lonely nights. But whenever I look around and I think things over, my good days outweigh my bad days, and I won't complain. I've learned how to live with my limp.
Are you ready to put a seed in the ground? Well, here at St. James, we have 3 ways to give. First, you can go to the St. James website and tap the online giving tab and give via PayPal. Secondly, you can give via Givelify. All you have to do is go and download the app Givelify, locate the St. James Missionary Baptist Church, create an account, follow the prompts, and then give. Thirdly, you're able to give by bringing your tithes and offerings to the church. There are times that you can do this. The first time is on Sundays from 10 to 12 p.m. And then secondly, on Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Please make sure you're following those times. And then finally, you're also able to mail in your offerings. We are asking that you do not send cash, but only mail in checks. If there are any other questions that you may have about giving, please email us at info@stjamescmbc.org.
We are continuing our 94th church anniversary and March Gladness. Faithfulness leads to victory. 1 John 5:4, with Sunday worship services at 10 a.m. and weekly Bible studies Wednesday at 7 p.m. Please join us via Facebook Live, YouTube Live, or live stream. One more time. The St. James Baptist Church 62nd choir anniversary featuring Leandria Johnson has been postponed until further notice. Starting in April, you can contact the church to arrange a pickup time for your refund. 512-928-2753. Do you need help getting an appointment for the COVID-19 vaccine? If so, contact the church at 512-928-2753. The St. James Missionary Baptist Church E.M. Franklin 2021 scholarship application is now available. The deadline is March 28, 2021. The details are at stjamescnbc.org/scholarships. St. James, we are continuing virtual services for this month only. 10 a.m. services are via live stream, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. For any information you may have missed or for contacts, visit our website at www.stjamescnbc.org.
We've seen you watching us on Facebook, on Livestream, and on YouTube, and we just wanted to say thank you for worshiping with us at St. James.